Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're doing the 5 worst things about living in Detroit. And this is Travis Juntti with Living in Detroit, Southeast Michigan team. So if that's the content that you're looking for, make sure you hang out till the end so you don't miss a thing about the 5 worst things about living in Detroit. And right now we're going to get right into that content. So number 1, we're going to start out with the public transportation. So I don't know if you've been to Detroit or if you've been around Detroit. Maybe you're coming from some other different city. If you've spent any time in Detroit, you realize that, wow, there really isn't much for public transportation. You know, there's a few buses running around. Nobody really knows the schedules or the times. They do have the Detroit People Mover downtown, but heck, I mean, I wouldn't. It's not something that I ever jump on. You know, typically whenever I go to Detroit, I'm really just driving in the town. Parking at a place downtown there, and just kind of walking around. And I'll be honest, I don't actually live in Detroit. My parents actually grew up in Detroit. I'm not a Detroit, native per se myself. But whenever I go to Detroit, I spend a lot of time, at some of the restaurants or, some of the events that are going on downtown. And like I said, we just end up parking and just kind of walking into town. And when you're doing that, a lot of times, without the public transportation, everybody else is doing that same exact thing. So it makes a little bit of a challenge when you're getting in and out of town. So you got to kind of, plan for that, especially if you're going into town for maybe an event or a, Red Wings game or Lions, whatever it might be. Make sure you plan ahead for that because, not everybody's loading up on buses and bussing down into downtown, like you find in a lot of different cities. So that's one thing you might want to, be aware of before you move into Detroit. Next on that list is the crime rate. So number 2, we can't really have a video talking about Detroit without talking about the crime rate. Look up this information yourself. Like I always say to my clients, you got to kind of figure out what you want to do. You got to do your own research, kind of like you're doing here. But I use sites like like Neighborhood Scout, and that'll kind of give you an idea of the different crime rate. What might be heavier in certain areas. And I do have another video, I'll link up here as well, where we talk about the crime rate in the city of Detroit. Just like any other large city, I mean, Detroit, Chicago, Memphis, Nashville, I mean, whatever it is, wherever you're from, there's going to have those pockets where might be areas that you might like to avoid. But of course, that's the research that you have to do yourself. A lot of the clients that I'm working with, we're doing a lot of there's certain neighborhoods in Detroit that we like to focus on, like I do videos on. There's certain areas, like around the Metro Detroit that stand out. And like I said, I do a lot of work with families. So a lot of families are basing that information onto different school ratings and stuff like that. So, there's a lot of research that you can go that goes into that. But like I said, reach out to the number 1 relocation team. All my information is down below. Call, text, email, whatever is best. We'll make sure that you find a place that's right for you. And I guess before I go any further, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the little notification bell to make sure you do not miss a video that we put out here in the future. Without further ado, let's keep moving on. We kind of hinted on this part a little bit, but number 3 on that list will be the schools. So the Detroit schools. Do that research yourself. Go on SchoolDigger or niche.com. Take a look and see for yourself, what your thoughts are on the schools. The Detroit, the inner city schools, just like I said, just like any other city, a lot of times they have a hard time with their schooling system. That being said, there's still a lot of wonderful people that are graduating out of the school system. But like I said, I do work with a lot of people that are working and living in the metropolitan area, greater Detroit metropolitan area, which is vast, might I say. There's a lot of top schools in the Detroit area. So that's something that you could certainly consider. I mean, there's a lot of, nationally recognized schools, nationally recognized, private schools as well, if that's something that you're also considering. So just like I said, make sure you look up some of those websites, do a little research on that and see if that's something that might be a fit for you. So number 4 on the list we're going to kind of, double dip it a little bit, but we're talking, the traffic and the road conditions, right? So the traffic, right? A lot of this kind of stems from the lack of public transportation, which we alluded to in number one. There's a lot of traffic around here. The metro area is very large. It's hard to kind of, fix the infrastructure of what we have here. I know they're doing a lot of work, adding a lot of lanes, especially up on, on 96, 275, where a lot of that traffic is kind of congested. So the last couple of years, and obviously we'll see it in the future, but there's been a lot of, lane additions, lane construction, just trying to work on all that. And as we talk about the road conditions, depending on where you're at, in Metro Detroit or Detroit as a whole, you're going to find a lot of areas where you're going to be hitting a lot of potholes and swerving around a lot of spots and whatnot. So that's the other thing to kind of consider, right? I mean, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the traffic, right? All of a sudden you're stopping or swerving for potholes, and then you got these cars all around you. With the heavy traffic, it's something that you have to look out for. And another thing, before kind of giving away the next part, we do have kind of that four-season weather. So with that heavy traffic, a lot of times comes the winter time where we're running into slushy roads, icy roads, whatever it might be. And it seems like every year around that first or second snowfall, we have just record amount of accidents. So it's something that you really have to be aware of. I'm not here to be a traffic control person, but make sure you use your common sense and use some defensive driving. Keep your space. So that you can have time to stop. Just like I said, just kind of looking out for you, right? Hey, I'm interested. Put something down in the comments. What's one thing that maybe you have looked at, when you were looking to move into Detroit, or maybe you're from Detroit? What's one of the things that you would put of one of the worst things about living in Metro Detroit or Detroit as a whole? And so now we're going to cap it off with number 5, and that's winter. Right, like I said, we live in the four seasons. We have the winter. A lot of people aren't a huge fan of it. Now, with the winter here in Metro Detroit, it's not always so bad. Just even this year, I mean, we've had a few dumpings of snow, but for some, that's a lot more than they would ever bargain for, that they would ever want. Like I said, I come from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That's where I was born. And you come from coming up there. I mean, that's a big difference in snowfall. From Upper Peninsula of Michigan down to the Detroit to Southeast Michigan area as a whole. But that winter weather with the traffic, like I alluded to earlier, that becomes a real problem where people are having to battle that. Dealing with traffic. You have a lot of more kind of that wet heavy snow, and if it's not wet heavy snow, a lot of times we're dealing with icy road conditions because it's at that temperature where it might rain during the day because it's above freezing, 30, 34, 35 degrees, and then by the time the sun sets, we're getting into 5-6 o'clock, and we get into that rush hour traffic. All of a sudden those roads are frozen over, so it becomes a giant challenge with the traffic and with the weather and so on and so forth. I know for just a small little story, right? I mean, we grew up playing hockey as a kid, and that's one of those things where we hope for a nice long winter where we can actually use our ice rinks, but that's kind of a little challenge here in Southeast Michigan where you don't quite have that weather that sustains that cold weather, so our kids can't really get out and use the ice rink like they really want to do. And that's another cool thing, not a worse thing, but it's just a little cool thing. They have a nice little ice rink downtown there. That's a fun place to check out. And it's not only just the snow, it's also the cloudy days. I'm looking outside. We haven't had the sunshine in what seems like 2 or 3 weeks, and the only time that the sunshine was out here is when we had a nice cold front, when we were sitting in the negatives. That's when the sunshine came out, so the sunshine felt great, but you were too afraid to go outside because it was, absolutely freezing outside. So the sun came out then, but now here we are, cloudy days. It can be a little bit depressing when you're looking at the snow, you're looking at the shorter days, the kind of wet ground, and the lack of sunshine. It really doesn't help a person have that high energy like you would in a city like, Phoenix, for instance, right? Where you get a whole lot of sunshine, or Denver, right? They got a lot of sunshine there as well. But anyways, I do appreciate you guys hanging until the end. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit that little notification bell. Make sure you get notified anytime we put out new content. And again, all my contact information is down below. Call, text, email. I don't know if it's 9 days, 90 days, 9 months, year and a half, whatever it is. We're here to help you on that journey. So make sure you reach out so we can help you throughout that process. Again, this is Travis Juntti with the Living in Southeast Michigan team, Detroit. Until next time, we'll see you.